Hello, welcome to Spiritual Light. Today I'm here and conducting the work. I'll invite our dear friend Silvia and our dear friend Charles. Hello, Silvia. Hello, Charles. Welcome to
Hello.
another episode of the Spiritual Light.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Again, we are here together, and today we have Munir. Welcome him and helping us to do this work, and Charles, who's traveling to the world. And so it's really good to come back again and discuss these topics that very much in people's minds at the moment. And it's very good to bring a spiritist perspective as well and some hope. Because I think we are lacking in it. So welcome everyone. If you have any questions, please send the questions through and we'll try to reply, answer whatever we can for you. So good evening, and let's have a good meeting today, full of hope and peace. And so, welcome. Boa tarde a todos que estejam nos ouvindo. Hoje nós vamos novamente falar de um assunto que começamos a semana passada, mas é um assunto que está muito presente nas nossas vidas, nas nossas mentes, e vamos tentar trazer o assunto, mas de uma maneira cheia de esperança e ver soluções para vários problemas que todos nós temos. Bem-vindos, e se vocês quiserem mandar umas perguntas, mandem e a gente tenta responder da melhor maneira possível. Okay.
Thanks, Silvia. Thank you so much. And today, yes, I'm here for Stevan. Stevan is on holiday, so it's a pleasure to be with you, share the studio with you and Charles. And so, Charles, waiting for your
yes, good
message.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I think the connection is not, I'm not at home, as you can see, so traveling, doing the best, and I hope it will suit, I will be able to, you will be able to receive the message without interruption. Indeed, Silvia, it's a very important question. So important because how to say, the standards we have usually are based on the materialist paradigm, and we know as spiritists or as spiritualists that the materialist paradigm is losing more and more credibility. The spiritualist paradigm, there are more and more evidences for it. And as soon as we think about all these questions based on the spiritualist paradigm, the point of view changes completely and the conclusions are much different from the one we get through the materialist paradigm. Okay, now I think Munir lost the connection. I hope he will come back. You still can hear me, Silvia? You are on mute.
I can both hear and see you, Charles.
Okay, perfect. So, I put the video in low definition, everything in order to maximize, how to say.
Okay. Are you able to play the video that we have? Or Munir
no,
seems to have
this
gone
only Munir can do. Yeah.
All right, yes. Maybe we could start. Oh, there he is.
I'm back. I think I had a hiccup with my internet. It's not only yours, Charles.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And welcome to Stella Puig, who is on Facebook.
Yes, welcome. Well, the topic of today, suicide, is a very important one. It's a very sensitive one. And as Charles mentioned, we are moving from a dimension of a purely materialistic perspective into a spiritual one. And thanks to what we get from Spiritism, we can see it from shed some new light into it. And that's what we are going to try today. To talk about it. It's a subject that requires perhaps hours and hours for us to understand the causes and to be able to propose something that is effective. But we see that there is a tremendous effort in order to tackle this subject. I brought here a definition. I liked it very much about suicide. Suicide is defined as the action by which someone intentionally ends their own life. It is an exclusively human act, and it is present in all cultures. So it was not just, in one or two cultures, but basically, in every country here around the world, we will find suicide as a problem. And despite culture, despite background, financial background, we see that it is a problem. And we see also that from the point of view of the Spiritist doctrine, suicide is considered a crime and consists of everything that is done consciously to hasten the extinction of vital forces. So suicide is not seen only from that perspective of an act at the moment of despair, but something that we intentionally do to ourselves over a longer period of time. So it becomes something chronic and not just something acute where, you have a problem and out of, desperation, you just kill yourself. And it is always a lack of resignation and submission to the Creator's will, becoming a transgression of a divine law. So we move into the Spiritist perspective of suicide. So I want to open to Silvia and Charles, to hear what they have to say. If they agree, if they don't agree, there's something else that we could add to this definition.
So one thing we can ask ourselves is the following: what is leading a person to commit a suicide? There can be several reasons. The main reason is when the person has big difficulties, or depression, or pain, whether it's mental pain or physical pain. And the person often is committing suicide. Not the person who is committing suicide does not want to finish with the life. He wants to finish with the pain or with the suffering. So this is one, not the only motivation leading a person to commit suicide. So the thing is, again, when we commit suicide, for a materialist, we put us in a box, bury it somewhere, or burn it in a crematorium, and then it's finished, nothing anymore. But we know, as with the spiritualist paradigm, that the soul is immortal. The soul does not die. And by committing a suicide, we are destroying the physical body, but not the soul. And in order to understand better what happens in case of a suicide, Kardec had already the idea, but to ask, to call spirits who committed suicide and to ask them, okay, what happened then after the suicide? And all of them, I think the vast majority is saying, I regret, I should not have done that, because after the suicide, my situation is even worse than before, because the physical pain is not disappearing as they think, because for a certain number of reasons, we will enter more in detail later on today, this evening. And the second thing is morally, in terms of conscience, there is an additional pain, which is to have committed something which did not solve the problem, and there is no way back. We cannot uncommit the suicide. And by asking the person who did it, giving this type of answer, we can immediately deduce that it is definitively not the right exit door. So when we have difficulties, when we have pain, when we have depression, when we have, there is always someone who can help us. The thing is, let's go and seek for help. And there are also a lot of signs, particularly for the youth, the young people who are also committing suicide earlier and earlier, because of bullying, because of how to say harassing in the social media or whatsoever. These new type of things which are coming, and but there are signs, and this we should really be pay attention, a lot of attention to these signs. In particular, the friends and the family, so that we can give the hand to this person. Okay, let's see what can we do to help you. You are not alone. We are here to help you, and so on, and find the adequate means for preventing the person to commit this act, which is irreversible, at least in this life. So that's just to introduce Silvia.
Yeah.
Oh, Munir.
Yes, very good. One thing that came into my mind, Chance, is the fact that you mentioned it, and you put it very well. Is the person finding him or herself in a situation, and they want to come out of that situation. They don't know how. They don't have the means, apparently, to come out of that. So they see suicide as an alternative to getting them out of the problem. But then there are the consequences of that, and also there are other solutions they couldn't see at the moment. And that if they had the right assistance to that, then perhaps they would find a different way. Because what we see is the person get in such a state, only sees that as an alternative. I'm sure if the person could consider a different alternative at the same level of suicide, they would certainly prefer this other alternative. But they don't consider any other alternative. They don't see them as a solutions to their problems. I think they are in such a state. And then I want to mention something before asking what Silvia thinks about that. We know that, for instance, there is one element which is the mental health state of the person. We know that affects, it can lead to suicide, contemplating suicide. We also know that previous experiences then go into the spiritist domain. Coming with the previous experiences in previous lives may induce the person or take the person to a situation where they are faced with a similar situation they had in the past, and they decided to commit suicide, and then perhaps this time they feel inclined to do the same thing. And the third element in this equation is the influence of external entities, the spirits. So I've mentioned so many different aspects, Silvia. I just want to hear what you have to say, if there's anything you want to mention, to add to that. And
well, that's an interesting point, because I think the subject really is much more complex than we can imagine. I think, like you both mentioned, I think the last thing is that someone feels so desperate because things are not going the way they want, that they decide to commit suicide. Maybe there are cases like this, but I think there are very few like that. It's one thing that sometimes we think, oh, but we can see a different end. We can see a different way. What can we do? But I think when the person gets into that frame of mind of destroying their lives, they don't know anymore. It's past their understanding. It's this black hole, and you don't see way down or up or sideways. And before the person sometimes will take an action that they don't really know what they're doing most of the time. I think so. It's very, very difficult to judge what could they decide. But I think the points that you made, when we have, and in spiritism we do taking in consideration spiritual influence, background of the person, maybe an previous existence in which they, for one reason or another, that was the way they died. And it's, there are so many other and things in this. We don't know the situation that the person is living. Sometimes, they're in great state of abuse, mental and everything. But I would like to remind someone of a point that Charles made last week, which was really very, very important, is that even though someone goes to the point of taking their own lives, which is the worst thing we can do for ourselves, to ourselves, but there is always hope. The fact that, of course, there'll be difficulties. We will have to face the difficulties. There is no denying it. But God is merciful. I think I heard this weekend someone saying, "You do not stop being a God's child. God will not going to punish you or anything." Which we know that God never does. God never really punishes us. It's our own understanding of the things we've done that we call upon us, to feel that we've done wrong. And I think that's very, very important point that Charles reminded us, that there is hope for everyone. No one will be lost forever or in sin, or because I think one of the points that there are many religions that when someone actually had gone through an act of suicide, they would not be allowed to be buried in a consecrated ground, as they say. So that would put an exclusion to that spirit, to that person, and that would be very painful for the family, and many other things. So, at least we don't, I think, go to those lengths anymore. Of not being saved or that, but there are still some religions who do that. So in Spiritism, we accept and we know, because the spirits has taught us, that there is redemption, there is a coming out of this. And I think, like Charles pointed out, and in the books we see heaven and hell and everything, how Kardec brought those things forward, and how from every one of them, once they realized what they did, they regretted it. They didn't see an end, but there are many signs. I think you or Charles mentioned today that there are signs there, and there are phrases like, "Oh, I'm really tired of this. I don't know if I can continue." Just phrases that are thrown out into the air. And, "Oh, I'm so tired of this life, I wish it would end." Or there are little things that are thrown out, and sometimes we don't take in. We don't, we dismiss it, or we don't listen to it. So this is very, very important, because I think I was talking about this weekend. I just want to bring a little bit of a statistic. I won't be long, I promise you. That the World Health Organization estimated that between 700,000 to 800,000 people commit suicide every year. I mean, it's almost unbelievable, the amount of people. And from this, quite a lot of them are very young, and also some of them are men, and of course people with mental health. But specifically here in England, there was an increase in number of people, consistently. But thank God, since 2018 has not increased anymore, at least. And a lot of them, quite young people. And also there are a lot of young people who self-harm. And 1 in 14 teenager now do that. And we know as well there is a lot of influence from the internet, sites and everything that teach people, or they see them and they can film, and there's such a madness. So I think, in all this, especially when the young people are concerned, is a worry, because it means that they have lost all hope of life, and we need to be very careful. I mean, there are many, many things we need to be more aware. I think if we go back to the teachings of Jesus and love yourself, love others as yourself, if we become a little more aware of the people around us, what they are saying to us, sometimes you feel a kind of desperations in people, just listen to them, see what they are saying, and try to bring them out of whatever is going on with them, and try to bring them some hope. And I think to be more kind to each other would not solve the problem completely, but at least would make us more aware of what people are going through. And we know that the situation in the world nowadays is very hard. A lot of problems, everything that's going on, even in Morocco, in Libya. I mean, I was thinking Libya having flooding. What's going on? Whenever I think of Libya, I always think about a desert, and now people are dying because the place is flooded. So there is a lot of unemployment. Every day in the news we hear there are so many shops closing down, so many companies closing down, and all these people getting unemployed, and they worry about their children and their family, and this becomes, people become very vulnerable. So we need to be aware of it, and in as much as possible help if we can, but also with our prayers. I think those of us who accept that there is a being beyond us, higher than us, and we believe that prayer helps, I think we should really do it. We should pray. Sorry if I went too long in the tangent, but it's a very extensive subject. I'll give you a chance now.
I just want to say hello to Stella Puig and Marco Davis. They left their hellos here for us. Silvia mentioned something very important. We bring with us these, some of us stronger than others, but this idea that God will punish us. So we've committed these acts, and we are going to suffer from that forever. And you reminded us very well that there's no punishment. God is always love. God is, according to what we do, He's always finding the best way to recover us, to take us out of that situation. Of course, the process is not, easy, and it requires some effort. We see not only in terms of, our mental condition, but also in physical terms. Charles mentioned at the very beginning, from the spiritual side, we know that there are energies involved. We know that we were prepared to, have a number of years with the physical body, and if we cut that short, it's like trying to cut a wire with a high voltage in it before you switch it off. So there are consequences that are not just moral or mental consequences. They are actually physical consequences, because you are still enjoying a physical body, and there is a relation between our spiritual body and the physical body, and the amount of energy that we have circulating in that. So we have physical phenomena taking place that causes suffering for those who commit suicide, but it's not an intentional suffering. It's not punishment. It's like the pain from a cut without getting the anesthetics before. If you cut yourself without the anesthetics, it's going to hurt a lot. So that's why you are giving something to prevent it. And suicide is more or less like that from this physical aspect. And you mentioned also from the World Health Organization, 700,000 to 800,000 people die due to suicide every year. I also want to bring something that for every suicide, there are many more attempts of suicide, many more. So these are people who wanted to commit it, but the act failed for some reason. They didn't know how to do it, or someone came at the last minute and rescued them from that situation, which shows us that the problem is even bigger, not just those who succeed. And the age range between 15, 14, perhaps now even earlier than that, 10 until the late 30s, is the period where there's a greater number of suicide. And in low-income countries, middle-income countries, high-income countries, everywhere, for different reasons, we see the problem. And it's important actually to find a way to give support, to rescue those people with this intention to commit suicide, from take them out from this situation. And love and compassion and companionship, all this, is so important. It's the best thing to offer than just criticizing them, punishing them, or thinking of other ways to show that what they are doing is not the best thing for them. So suicide is a serious public health.
Yes. And to just to build on what you just said, Munir, I think the first aspect is this physical effect, as you told. Of course, when we tell physical, it is physical on the term of the physical body, which has been destroyed, and also on the spiritual body, because the spirit is body of knowledge, teaches us that in mankind we have three things. There is a physical body, everybody knows. There is a spirit, which is independent of the physical body, and there is the spiritual body, which is the intermediary between both. But in order to have life, in order that the life exists, there is also what you mentioned, the vital fluid. And the vital fluid is like fuel. You for the car, you have the driver, which is maybe the spirit. You have the car itself, which is the body. But you need also some fuel, otherwise the car is not working. And it's the same for everything which is living. There is some vital fluid in it. So this vital fluid is foreseen, like fuel, for a given journey, from birth until the programmed natural death. So if the life is interrupted before, there is a remaining part of vital fluid which is here, and which is making such that the separation of the soul and with this spiritual body from the physical body is jeopardized, cannot happen naturally, and it takes much time. And this is one of the biggest source of the suffering and the pains that the spirits are saying they go through after a suicide. So that's one thing. And then also very interesting when you called about statistics. So it's 800,000, more than 800,000 every year. So something like 40 suicides every hour. It's one of the first cause of mortality for all the young people. But what is important is, according to the WHO, which considers indeed, as you told correctly, Munir, that the suicide is a public health priority subject, they came to the conclusion that 90% of the suicide can be prevented and avoided if the signs are recognized before. And as Silvia told, when a young is saying, I'm tired of this life, or I think I will commit suicide, or even if they say this, it is not a joke. It is something most of the people who committed suicide told before that they would commit it. Okay, so it is something that on which we have to pay a lot of attention to it in order to start acting, helping, trying to do whatever we can in order to help, to see identify what is the problem, and to work in order to help the person to solve the problem. And with this, we could avoid 90% of the suicide. So you see, 90% of 800,000, it's already 720,000. So it would divide by 10 the number of suicide if, we can get the sensibilization to the importance of the prevention. The person doesn't want to finish with their life, but they want to finish with the suffering. Talk with someone, just give a hand. What can I do to help you? Because the majority of the people do not know with whom to talk about their problems. So this is also something quite simple to put in place. Look, if you have a problem, here is a free call number, whatever, or also within the family and the friends, they have a key role in all this. And also to sensibilize all the humans that there are some difficulties we cannot solve alone. So it is acceptable, it is even good and necessary to ask for help. And by asking for help and getting some help, for sure, this is also another key aspect in order to prevent the suicide. Voilà. So it's a question of engagement of friends, person from the family or whatever. Just take a minute, just talk with them, just try to do the best you can in order to give a little bit comfort for them, because we can really avoid this fatal issue for a lot of them. And in the Spiritist movement, we had some initiative for that. For instance, there is a campaign that we launched some years ago, which is called Say Yes to Life, which is exactly oriented with the suicide prevention. And every week there was posted an information or a video or something giving some ways exactly to prevent the suicide. Nice stories of people who had huge difficulties and with help they could solve them, or even some person, I remember some of them, a guy which jumped from the Bay Bridge in San Francisco in order to commit suicide. And basically he fell into the water. There was a ship just aside who could save him, and at the end he did not die. And this person is now making conferences everywhere to give what he felt during that moment. And so his situation was very difficult, leading him to commit a suicide. But the second after he jumps above the bridge, he was already regretting to have done it. And then, of course, the time to fall down and so on. And it's really something which is touching us to see the regret he had at the first second after he jumped. Luckily, he has been saved. But and the way he's explaining this to some other people is also a way to help a lot in making all this prevention.
Yeah, I think being able to, to come back and tell people that he regretted so much, the second after he jumped, was really important.
So he survived, he's alive.
Yeah.
We have also the spirits, but the spirits, everybody do not believe in them. But they also tell almost all, I regret, I should not have done that.
Yeah, he had a second chance,
Voilà.
And
but
made
good
use.
He survived. So it's a living person who's saying what he passed through during those seconds he was falling down from the bridge and thinking he would die.
Saint Augustine once said that suicide is the failure of courage. Do you agree, Silvia?
Well, it's is the failure of courage? I don't know, because it could be, but on the other hand, thinking in the perspective sometimes of the person, because I think our love for life is very strong. You know, we read in the Spirit's book that God has given us a determination to survive at all costs. And, you know, sometimes we see, and I think, like the point that Charles said, we don't want it to die. We just wanted to stop whatever problem we are having. So I think when the person gets into that frame of mind, they are completely blinded to anything and everything. So it's beyond courage, it's beyond thinking. And I think the most important things is helping them before they get into that point. Because, you know, the story that Charles said is very, very powerful, because a person survived and was able to see what it happened, you know, what was, and now he's trying to help other people. But I think it's very, I'm not know the statistic, but it's very common that a person, once they tried, they will try again and again, and sometimes until they succeed, even more than once or twice afterwards. So it's I don't think you can just give this definition, if you see what I mean. Everything is a little bit of this and that.
Too
But it's the
simplistic, isn't
problem.
it?
Exactly, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
do you know, it's interesting. I was just thinking, sitting here and thinking that one of the things that we have now, we're very isolated. We have isolated even within our families. I know people who communicate within their own homes by text. When the mother's in the kitchen, the person is in their own room, because they, I don't know if I'm an old-fashioned person, but in my home, we had to sit at table and everybody together, and no one was there, oh, I'm going to do this. Everybody had to wait, no eating fast to get out. You had to stay. But now we're very isolated. We don't seem, all the friends are on Facebook or are on WhatsApp, or, I mean, there are so many media now. I don't, I'm an old fashioned. I don't know all this TikToks and Instagram and God knows how many things. And everybody seems to be in it, but not with anyone. And I think one of the problems was the breakdown of the family. And you see people in the bus or in the tube with small children. And if the child is a bit, crying or doing something, they give them the phone. Or they keep shh, 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 be quiet, because they are on the phone and they cannot give any attention to this baby, this child that is telling them, oh, look, mommy, how beautiful that is, because the mother's too busy on the phone talking to God knows who. And I think this as well is one of the things that needed to change. We needed to drop our phones sometimes, and our iPads and God knows what, and the phones now is on your arm, isn't it? So every time you're in your arm, like they're talking to people and they're looking at their arms. So, even as a grown-up sometimes can be annoying, because you're talking to someone and they're constantly going like this on their arms, So I think we needed to learn to be with people, because even within the families now, and I'm not criticizing because the families are different. That's not the problem. We can live very well whatever way the family is composed. But if you have friends, if you are together, if one is watching for the other, and I think we're busy with their lives. We try, and I have to study and I have to do this. And I heard a story the other day. This boy, this baby, 5 years old, and the father wanted to do something, and he said, can we play? I said, oh, I'm studying now, I'm busy now, wait, and you can't say this to a 5-year-old child, that you have to wait like 3 hours, so anyway, he didn't, he went to play. But I don't think it happens anymore. I'm watching the telly, I'm reading the paper. And I think as parents, as family, anyway, because we are all family, even though, I don't have any children, but I see other people's children. You can give them attention. You can help them as well. I think this is one of the things we need to do as well, as a society as a whole, because also, I think one of the things, we have lost faith. We have lost God. We have lost spirituality. We are too clever now because we are too important. We don't need God anymore. God is such an idea, or you have divided God into mother God, godmother, godfather, completely, and things that you cannot associate it with. We cannot feel, that's something. And I think faith, spiritual, is not sort of a religion as such, but spirituality. See that we are part of something bigger, that we're not alone, we are not isolated, we are all connected, that there is, I think this is one of the problems as well, that people feel so isolated and alone. But also, I was just thinking, that very, very famous soliloquy, yes, of Hamlet, and to be or not to be, that's the question. And he's actually talking to himself, if he's going to kill himself or not. He's talking about the suffering of life and how unfair things are and how horrible everything that was around him. And we know, if you know the play, you know how terrible things were around him. And he was thinking, oh, but this death would be, but then, and he keeps thinking, oh, maybe it's just a dream, maybe it's just a sleep, a dream, and nothing more. But then he said, yes, but maybe it's not, maybe it's not. And death would be worse than what I'm having now, and I think it's so clever the way the play, the way he's talking to himself. And I think how many people don't go through that talk and opt not to, because I think if you start talking to yourself a little bit as well, yes, this is okay, or maybe I'm going to just sleep, maybe it'll be even dreams, but but then, and then he says, death make us cowards of us all, because then we're not going to do it. And I think, people out there, talk to yourself a little bit, be two people, say, oh no, this is okay, and I think it would be helpful. And even us, because we are here, and like a friend of mine used to say, and there by the grace of God, but we are not exempt of falling into this, of getting one day so desperate, or a situation that we feel unable to cope with, and we may think of it. And I wonder how many people, including myself, actually, I put myself very, very strongly into that, if we didn't have spiritism in our lives, how many of us would have opted out, and how important it is not have spiritism itself, but have a spirituality, have a faith in something beyond ourselves, to really, we are light, we are inheritors of the universe. And it's interesting as well, because we have in one part emptiness, and the other part science is advancing to the point that everything, absolutely everything we knew before is no more. Even the Big Bang is no more. There is other universe beyond there. That's what this James Webb telescope is telling us every single day. They're discovering something that was completely inconceivable, and like said, science is going to find God, because it's not faith, it's not the religion, it's not the church, science, because we're going to go to that point in which there must be something. And I think, having faith in ourselves as well is one step towards helping ourselves.
Yeah. You mentioned friends and family, and I'll bring a quote from Vincent van Gogh. He said, suicide makes friends and family feel like they are the killers. And I agree with that, because the family and the close friends, they always say, perhaps I should have done something more. Perhaps I should have paid more attention. Perhaps I should have, spent more time with that person. You mentioned the family not giving attention to, each other and only concerned with their, you know, daily affairs and so on. And I have another one, and then I'll ask Charles. And this is from Leon Denis, from the book Life and Destiny. Leon Denis said, the reasons for suicide are temporary and human. The reasons for living are an eternal and superhuman order, of an eternal and superhuman order. What do you think, Charles?
Yes, I mean, the quotes from Leon Denis are really outstanding, extraordinary. And even the one from Van Gogh, so Van Gogh, so it is indeed calling our attention to give value to the life. Say yes to life was the title of that campaign of suicide prevention. And really, I mean, we all can have a role to play in this, to listen, to have compassion, to listen. Sometimes the people need to talk, so we don't sometimes not even have to give advices, just to listen to the person is sometimes enough to help them. We need also to be meek and perseverant, to show to our beloved ones that we are here to help them in case of need, that they can count on you, that they can trust on they can find someone to listen to them, or someone to help them when they are crying or whatsoever, to bring some consolation and whatever. It's very important just to show attitude like this, to love them, by the way. That's the correct word. Then sometimes when the case is more complicated, we can also ask for the help of people, of professionals. So these professionals are also here, can do a lot of things to help in the prevention, whether they are psychiatrists or psychologists or doctors to relieve some pain or whatever. There are always some solution. And then also we share our own experience with the positive things and aspects, can also help the others to feel more comfort and help them to tackle their own challenges. So it's a set of very simple things that can be done in order to everyone can play a role in this, and that is, I think, important to understand. And okay, we will maybe not be capable of prevent 90% of the suicides, but if we prevent already 50, it's already a good start. And then leading by example, it will help also other people in the same way. Then there is also another kind of suicide, which is assisted suicide. We didn't talk about it so much yet. The people, they say, I want to die with dignity. And also in the mediumistic meetings, so it did not exist that much, at least in these circumstances at the time of Kardec. But today we got already several messages from people who committed this assisted suicide, went into Switzerland or Belgium or whatever country is, how to say, allowing legally this type of practice. And it's the same. All of them, I wanted to finish with my life, and my life is not finished. You see, they come with even more problems than what they had when they had a terminal disease or whatsoever, or something serious, who led them to commit this assisted suicide. It's also not a good solution. We rather should develop more palliative cares to remove the pain, to make the life of the people at the end of the life with good dignity, with the best possible quality, because anticipating the return, it is assisted suicide, even if it's just by a couple of weeks or months or whatever, is also not a good solution, as we explained it before. So we talked a little bit about euthanasia last time, or abortion. We can maybe come back to this subject to enter more in detail, but the best always is let the life come to the natural end and do whatever you can for the betterment of the quality of life, particularly fighting against pain with all the necessary means that the science has available today, and also the presence, whether of the medical people or of the family people, to show and to demonstrate that even at the end of the life, the quality and the dignity of life is here and is worth to be lived.
Yeah, you mentioned the help of medical professionals, and apparently some psychiatrists, they say they can prevent many cases of suicide with medication if they identify the tendency of the person to commit suicide, because it's not just I want to commit suicide out of the blue. The person already has some signs, depression, or low esteem or whatever, and that can be identified. And in many cases, medication will help, because take the person out of that mental condition that will allow the suicidal thoughts to take place and take over. And it's really, really interesting. So it's important to combine all the efforts possible, and also to to see what is there to help and whoever is in need. And just a comment about something that Silvia said, that everything is changing all the time. Science is saying, there was the Big Bang. No, the Big Bang was during that period, but it was something else. And I think our lives today is more like riding a motorbike in the night, at night with no lights, a high speed. What you can see just a few centimeters in front of you. It creates an anxiety because things are changing, but you don't know what is further down the road. And having this spiritual perspective, believing in God, knowing that everything is going to be for our good, no matter what, and it's like seeing the road all the way, so you know what to expect next, and you're not caught by surprise. There is a question here, I think. Let me see. Yeah, I put it here from Michael Davis. Spiritism helped to avoid suicides by many literature about it. Instead, other religions, dogmatics, they don't believe in spiritual worlds. They never educated. For them, reincarnation doesn't existed. So Spiritist Center helped too many children and youth to study about it naturally. With with that we are spirits. Yes, this spiritual side of us helps a lot, and that's what Leon Denis said. The reasons for us to be alive, to keep ourselves in this experience that we are having now, they are eternal and are of a superhuman order. They are spiritual order, whereas the problems that we have here are temporary. I don't know of anyone who committed suicide because he or she found out they are immortal, or because there is God and God is all love. And no, I mean, the reasons for committing suicide are problems that we have to face, be them physical problems, be them situations that we find ourselves in where we don't value who we are, we low esteem, and as I said before, sometimes even cases where medication would help us to get out of. So yes, it is important actually to help people realize that what Charles said, we are immortal. No matter what, we change, dimensions as such, but, we carry on, always progressing, always evolving. So our time is nearly up. So I will ask Charles for his final comments. Unfortunately, there was many more topics here that we could discuss about related to suicide, but it's
we can repeat one
it's
more emission.
never
Huh?
enough. Yes, yeah,
No problem. And I think
yeah,
between abortion, suicide, and
yeah.
euthanasia, there is we did not
This
address
is
everything yet. Huh?
because
But
one of the sorry, Chance. Yeah, go
yeah,
on.
go on.
I was going to say that, for instance, the spiritual influence. Also, there was a case
Yeah.
by Carl Wickland, 30 Years Among the Dead. In his book, he talks about someone who was induced to commit suicide, and then, but it's a topic for
And
perhaps in
Edith
another.
Fiore as well.
Yeah,
Edith Fiore in her book, there are many cases. And
yeah,
we have a very extensive literature.
yeah.
So the
There
thing
was
I think. Sorry, Silvia, go on.
No, I was just saying that Stella made a point that she's emotional. It's so emotional. Yes, it is a very emotional subject because it touches all of us, and being human means that we have quite a lot of difficulties and problems, and every now and then we face really very, very difficult things. But I think one thing to be reminded of is that everything passes, nothing lasts forever. And even the problems, they go by. Things that used to be very difficult, eventually we survive them, we overcome them. So it's very, very important for us to be courageous, and when we feel weaker, to ask for help. And like Charles said, maybe just talking to someone, or try to talk to yourself. Be like Hamlet, and so we everything goes, everything passes, things pass, and we overcome them, and life is very precious. To wake up in the morning, see the light of the sun or the rain and everything, there is beauty in life. And as Charles and Munir said, and quoting Leon Denis, we are immortal beings. We don't die. We do not die. And so let's enjoy life while we're here on earth, because our life will continue afterwards. So just a final point.
And also positive message. Even if somebody did a suicide, there is a way out. It's spiritually, we have the reincarnation. Of course, it brings additional difficulties and problems, but the problems are solved. The literature of Ivone Pereira, for instance, coming from Brazil. I don't know if there are a lot translated into English, but it's Ivone Pereira committed suicide and had in their life as Ivone Pereira the mission in order to do all what she could in order to prevent. So already as a kind of to repair what she has done. There is also another book who has been received by automatic writing, which is called Exit. I Killed Myself, What Happens After, explaining the suicide, the consequences of the suicide we talked already, but also then what is the plan to fix the problems caused by the suicide in the next incarnation, passing through health difficulties, but then this is curing the spiritual body, enabling then next lives without the consequences anymore. So there is a way out. And the best way, if we have a beloved one who committed suicide, is to pray for him, to sing him good vibrations. He is in a difficult situation, but we can help a lot with our good vibrations. Never have condemned be always make prayer full of love. No problem, it will pass. I forgive you, and so on. Whatever we can do in order to help his situation is always, of course, welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to you both. I just want to add, Charles, that Divaldo Franco also committed suicide in the previous incarnation, and until today he's got some lung problems that they come back due to the way he died. He drowned himself, and he still brings some of these problems today that slowly will go away. So life goes on, and it'll be very nice when this present life finishes and we look back and say, I managed to overcome all the difficulties, so I can enjoy a new phase in my life, because that is over. But if we have to relearn, no problem. Let's just move forward with the joy, with hope and faith in God, that things will continue, and our efforts will have its rewards. So thank you both. Thank you to all those, Stella, Marco, and we also had here the Magical Solution for being here with us. And see you in our next Spiritual Light.
And I think next week we will talk about assisted suicide and euthanasia more in detail.
Okay. Okay.
So,
thanks.
Good night. God bless.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you
God
so much.
bless you.
Keep
Bye-bye.
positive. Keep positive.
All the best.
Bye. Bye.
Never give up.
No.
Alessandra as well. There we go.
Life is worth living. Yeah. God bless.